All right, guys. Well, here we are, another episode of Friend Fridays, where I have people on that mean something to me. Today, we have my good friend Samantha Bennington and my new friend Jeff Blue.
Hey there.
I met Samantha Bennington. I'd gone to a party, a couple months ago, and I met her son Draven. She's a life coach. She's an author. She was married to Chester Bennington, frontman from Linkin Park, and I struck up a conversation with their son Draven. Very, very, very nice young man, great artist, and we had started talking. I didn't realize who his father had been. I didn't know who his mom was, and I told him I was an author, and he told me that his mom had written a book called Falling Love Notes. There it is, and it's a wonderful book. I read it.
Created all this art.
Draven created the cover for the art. I read the book before I met her, and my mom is having health issues right now, as everyone knows. So I'm kind of preemptively dealing with grief, and I don't know, the book resonated with me. We had a lot of parallels in our lives, and it meant something to me. I reached out to her, and now we're best friends. That's pretty much
I'm like his big sister now. What up?
And Jeff Blue is on the show with us as well. Meeting him, he was just telling me what his background is. He's a big music producer. He signed insanely huge acts.
Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, Korn, Macy Gray, Better Than Ezra. Who am I missing? Last
Wrote
Kiss
for
Goodnight.
Well,
yeah,
Last Goodnight.
yeah,
Wrote
Last
for
Goodnight.
A lot of writing, producing. I've been really blessed to work with some amazing artists. And I happen to write a book too. It is called One Step Closer. That's my name, Jeff Blue. It's From Zero to Number One, Becoming Linkin Park, and it is the story of how I took a college class and met a young guitarist named Brad Delson, and we built a band called Linkin Park, and was fortunate enough to develop it and find another amazing young man named Chester Bennington. And this is how I met Samantha back in 1999, and the incredible story of how perseverance and dedication and belief in oneself led to the biggest selling debut album of the 21st century, and an amazing group of musicians led by Chester Bennington and Mike Shinoda, and called Linkin Park. So that's that.
And I know that there's a lot of people on my channel that are big Linkin Park fans. I know when I first met you, I talked about it, a lot of people were interested in you as well. So I like the band. I like the bands that Jeff has been associated with and has written some songs for, but I don't know much about the stories. And I think what we're going to do is, I usually have a problem shutting up. I'm going to try to just ask questions.
We don't have a problem shutting up. None of us.
None of us. We all have the gift of gab.
I'm going to try to just let them talk, but I am genuinely curious. So I think, how did it all start? You kind of touched on that. Do you guys want to take it when Linkin Park started and you guys met? Can you guys take us back to that time? Kind of tell us the story of that, because I'm interested to hear.
I can start.
Go ahead.
So, in 1997, I was VP of A&R for a publishing company called Zomba Music Publishing, and I had just signed a woman named Macy Gray, who I couldn't get any interest in, and I was looking for an intern to help me send out demo tapes, which were demo cassettes at the time. And so I was lecturing at UCLA, met this kid who came to my office and said he wanted to be my intern, and that he also had a really cool band that was better than the plaques on my wall, which included Matchbox 20, Korn, and Limp Bizkit. And I was like, this kid has humongous balls of confidence. And so I'm like, you're hired, because I like arrogant, confident people. And I think all of us are. But you got to have confidence in yourself and in your belief in what you can do and your vision. So long story short, signed the band, which was called XERO, off of their first show ever at the Whiskey in 1997, and showcased the band for about 40 labels at the time, and got rejected by 40 labels. And
I was so nice in my book because I put 23 times. I was just trying to be gentle with the egos. And, we all have them a little bit.
This is the precursor to
Chester.
To Chester.
So,
Gotcha.
Long story short, after which you could read in the book, called one step closer. We had this show at the Whiskey, which was a complete disaster, and decided at that time we needed to make a change with the lead singer, and that's a really difficult thing to do because
their original lead singer became one of the very big managers at Velvet Hammer.
Huge
Mark.
Manager, System of a Down, Taproot, great guy. Just didn't work out in the synergy of a band. Yeah, and again, that's part
sometimes
of finding
you got it, sometimes you don't.
that's part of the whole thing about finding your purpose in life, and so it was a really interesting procedure. But then we were stuck with trying to find a lead singer, which is again the core. You want to build a band around a lead singer. It's harder to find a lead singer to fit a band, but randomness.
See, all you bands watching, that's how you do it. Okay.
So randomness, we were at South by Southwest, me and this attorney and another guy who just got a band signed. Scott Harrington.
And we love you, Scott. I hope you're watching.
And he was dissing on, the whole procedure of the band called XERO and how, we screwed everything up. And I'm like, I've been trying to find a lead singer. He goes, I may have this guy in Phoenix, Arizona. And he goes, I don't know, he probably won't want to do the band. And I'm like, we're drinking, Grey Goose sodas like crazy, like, they're kind of going out of style, because it was almost going out of style. It was the end of happy hour. And so we drank more. And, you got to get a deal, right?
Yeah,
so I convinced.
Speaking of that, hello to my water. It's just
it's
water.
Not really water. It's not. No, it's definitely not water.
Mine really is water.
Mine's not. I just lied. Sorry.
So we go up to this room, and at the Four Seasons, I go, dude, we got to call this guy. And he goes, fine, I'll do it. And we get on the phone, and this woman answers, and her name is
ta-da,
Samantha Bennington. And he's like,
yeah, I was Bennington then, because we were married in 1996. Okay.
So he's like, can you get Chester on the phone? I'm like, Chester? It's not a very rock star name. I'm like, Chester, because I just signed another guy named Fred Durst, and that didn't seem like a rock star. I'm like, where are these guys coming up with these names?
Oh, but weren't they both such big rock stars?
Huge rock stars. So I'm like, okay, I got another weird name, Chester.
Wait, what did I say? Oops, didn't say it.
Well, you can fully say shit like that on my
I know, isn't it fun?
Yeah, say
we love cussing. I've been on the road for a long time.
So the incredible story is, we hear this background music, and this guy Chester's like, yeah, it's my birthday, and I'm like, God, this kid's at his birthday party and he's answering the phone. That's really cool. And I go, well, I have this really big band called XERO. Everybody's trying to sign them, which is an absolute complete lie at this time. We were rejected by everybody, so we couldn't even get a lead singer. We couldn't get anybody interested. So I kind of lied. I don't know.
I never knew that until right now that he lied.
Part of the key. It was a misleadation or a misleading statement. But it was I take this, scratch all of it. It was a motivational statement.
Edit any of that
out. It was motivating. So I say, I got this great band who, everybody has interest in, and would love to hear what you have. And so we sent.
I also remember him saying over the phone when we had. Wait, are we at the phone part? Are we not at the phone part?
I'm telling the phone part.
Sorry. Okay. Since I know the story, so I jumped the gun.
So. I'm going to send you the instrumental demo, and I want to hear your interpretation of how, the song should be, because I'm really not happy with the vocalist on them. So he's like, you want me to leave my birthday party? And me being the arrogant drunk guy that I was like, of course.
I love the truth.
I go, what's my favorite quote? No, I haven't even had anything to drink. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. That is it.
That is it.
And so I use that quote, because I quote Wayne Gretzky all the time. And
go Kings.
That's the only quote I ever say, by the way, about
Kings.
Wayne Gretzky. So
that's
he goes, you want me to leave? I'm like, absolutely. And I go, there's no way this kid's going to do that. And
I remember Jeff saying predominantly, this was a huge thing in my household at the moment, because we just got back from Mexico. It was his birthday party, and I needed him in the recording studio. And so you said, do not go into the recording studio recording music the way you think you hear it. The band has a specific sound. They have a specific desire. This is what they want you to do. Do it exactly like this. And of course, no vocalist will ever listen to that.
Wait,
no good one, anyhow.
Let me get this straight. XERO is the other. This is all of
the
Linkin
original.
Park.
The original.
The original name
LP.
of Linkin Park was XERO.
But without Chester, so they did not know Chester.
Correct.
They had no idea.
They hadn't met yet. They're just now.
Okay.
They had to meet through Scott Harrington and this conversation. So Scott Harrington, backstory, knew Chester in grade A's because he was interested in Chester's voice and ran across him back in the day. Then he filed it away, and I became friends with Scott, and I just nurtured that friendship because I ultimately just adored him. He's this biggest sweetheart and an attorney that you actually like and you're not scared of and want to like go bite your nails or run home to daddy. That was kind of amazing. And he was so, I just trusted him. So when he called me and reached out, I was like, oh, if Scott's reaching out to us, this is legit. I knew right away it was legit. He would not put anyone.
But was Chester in other bands before that?
He was in grade A's.
Great, okay. Sorry. It's a convoluted story, so I'm trying to be the translator.
Well, the interesting thing about it is that that's mine actually, but
is it?
yes, okay. I was going to make a rude comment. So
Just been drinking.
So, anyways, the thing is, life presents you with moments where, you know,
opportunities. Do you see them?
A door will open and you either have that moment to walk through it or not, and that's what makes all the changes. Well, you've got to be open to every moment in your life, and I think people don't really recognize the fact that there's always, every day is a moment. You know, when you decide to go, you know, through a red light or not, you don't want to go through red lights, trust me, you don't want to do that, but if you decide to make a right turn instead of a left turn to get to your destination, you may run into so-and-so. My whole point is that you never know what you're going to run into and what door is going to lead to open in your journey to the next position of your life. I'm not, but I play one on this podcast.
I know, I'm really liking it.
But it's very true, and I mean, everything in my entire life has been, you know, when you think you're tapped out, that you.
He's older than me, by the way, so this is where the wisdom comes
by
in.
1 month, a couple days. I'm
No.
23.
Damn it, you
You're
blew
22?
it.
You're 22, right?
Yes.
23. That's not true either. That's misleading. I'm sorry. 24.
We're just having fun, guys.
So
Come have fun with
so
us.
lies get you successful.
No, that's
just
not
so
true.
you know.
But I will tell you
not.
this. To get
Don't
into
listen to
my...
that. Everyone knows the truth. They find out eventually, and they'll post it all over the world. Internet will be vast.
Especially in this day and age.
Yeah.
So,
But
vast.
I will say this. When I was trying to get a job as a journalist, I couldn't get anywhere, and so I pretty much misled the editor at this magazine that I had done a lot of articles, and I hadn't. But I was a really good writer, and sometimes you just gotta massage the truth a little bit, because if people don't want to give a lot of people chances, and so, you know, you got to have the talent.
But
always
once you're
to do
in and you do know what you're doing, be honest, because if you,
your talent will always dictate. You know, if I wasn't a talented writer, then I would have never succeeded. If Chester wasn't a talented vocalist, or, you know, he wouldn't have succeeded. It all comes down to talent, opportunity, hard work, and being ready. And living your own truth. Truth. Long story short, Chester, you know, I got off the phone with Chester. I'm like, this guy's never going to call me. And Scott Harrington's like, dude, you're a total douche. You asked this guy to, you know, leave his birthday party and record a demo. And I'm like, yeah, that was not cool. Anyways, I get back home, and sure enough, there is a FedEx
He had a little birdie in his ear that loved what I heard, and I also had a premonition a year before, and I was like, you are going to get a phone call, because he wanted to give up music.
And I was the phone call.
And he was the phone call, almost to the date.
How old was Chester at that point?
Oh, God, how old were we?
It's in 99, right?
We were married in 1996, and
mid-20s,
yeah,
20s.
so he was 19 when we got married, and then you go from 1996 to 1999. So there you go.
And this is part of what you do when you try to put talents together. If a band's not working, you've done this with other bands as well. I
have a reputation for breaking off pieces of bands, getting rid of the weak links, and finding stronger. And
so this was an atypical to like grab a singer because it's not working with XERO.
Well, this is very much in the beginning of my career. I always find stuff, and I find great elements, and then I hone it, and I look at it, you know, deep dive into the strengths and the weaknesses, and when things need to be changed, then you need to change them, because you can't, you know, keep repeating the same mistakes, and
yeah, no, definitely.
So this situation was very delicate, because the lead singer before Chester was one of the founding members of this band, and they were all best friends growing up. So it was a very difficult situation when you have to let somebody go that's a founding member. But it was for the greater good, and Mark ended up getting a lot of writing on that album and had a great career after. So with Chester, when I got the demo tape at home, I was just like floored. I was like, it was just incredible. We talked. He came out to LA, and it takes a lot of strength and passion to do that and pursue your dreams, because, and I think it's really important when people are young to do this, but you can't lose that passion and that fervor, and that if you want to do something like, you just have to take those chances, because that, there's too many people go, oh, it's a dream, it's a pipe dream, it's gonna be too difficult. No, that is what makes, the risk, greater the risk, greater the reward. But you got to try stuff, because nothing is ever, there's no guarantee shit's going to work out.
So the sweetest thing for us being newly married, well, we were married for 4.5 years before the band actually took flight, where we were, he was actually a member. And we had nothing to lose and everything to gain. So what Jeff's saying right now about taking risks, to anyone out there watching that wants to be in the music industry, if you have something, you've got to just go for it. You've got to believe in yourself even when others don't believe in you. You have to continue on your path and continue doing what you love and what makes you happy, regardless of what the rest of the people, I mean, look at how many times they were turned down. One of the biggest bands in the world was turned down so many times, we all lost count. We all have different numbers.
It was actually, at the end of the day, it was 44. So what ended up happening?
With 0 or total?
No, total.
Okay, I was nice. I said 23 in my book. God, there's a little...
It's okay.
I actually did that on purpose. We all know that. Nobody's discrepancy. It's not a discrepancy. Nobody's challenging that one.
No. So Chester comes out and comes into my office, and again, this is a very interesting story, because this is very early days of the internet. I didn't see any photos of this guy, so I'm imagining with this voice that he put on the demo.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I remember this.
Pulled back hair, just long pulled back hair in a ponytail, like dirty blonde hair, just big, guns like that much bigger. My guns shrunk.
And then you got this
but just and like 6'2", and Doc Martens, and just rolled up. I don't know. I had
were you imagining the Misfits walking out?
No,
Doyle?
this is just like,
I know, that's what
like
I thought.
a buffed out Sebastian Bach.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like that. And in walks, the front desk girl named Stephanie's like, Chester's here. And I'm like all nervous. I'm like, God, it's like almost like a blind date. I'm like, this guy's gonna. I had a premonition that this guy was going to change my life, and it was like a big deal for me. I never get really nervous at all, and I was like, I just felt something. And in walks this kid, kind of scrawny, oversized, bedazzled. And when I say bedazzled, I don't know if people know what that means, but like sparkles all over the shirt, buttoned down, and it was like, what the? And I was like, oh my God, this guy's not intimidating. He sounds nothing like his voice. Coke bottle glasses, and he had his like dyed black hair twisted. And I was like, oh my God. He
had just cut off his dreads right before that.
I was like, this is not the guy I predicted. And by the way, when I actually played the music for the band originally, they weren't really vibing his voice.
Look.
No, his voice.
No, his look was the biggest thing.
They never saw him. I hadn't met him, but I played the music, and I go, yeah, it's kind of that Scott Weiland vibe. I'm like, we don't really know if that's what we want. And I'm like, trust me, this is what you want.
It's what you need. It was what
they
needed.
And he came out, and I like immediately on his image, I was like, oh shit, we're in deep shit. And so I went to the next room.
His image was cool. They didn't get it.
It needed
we needed
later,
more
later
money.
On,
we were broke and young, and we needed to send him to John Barbados to look nice.
It's in the voice, and I will address this issue, because this is the same issue with Macy Gray, all these different artists I've worked with, is that when you get the right sound, and you feel the confidence, then your image reflects that sound in the confidence, and you feel confident about being that
true.
And emoting that persona. And so I think that's what happened with Chester. And we all, I've had super bad image ideas of myself, which are somewhere on the internet. Horrible. But I had bleached blonde hair at one point. That's not a good look for me.
Me neither. If you ever let me highlight my hair, go send me back.
You didn't look that bad.
No, I was bad.
Chester influenced so many people stylistically. I'd say, like in the early 2000s. It's really interesting to hear, like, before it took off.
Oh yeah.
That it was kind of like, something you noticed in, like, I don't know, a derogatory sense, or
It wasn't derogatory. It just didn't fit his voice. But he
was still, we're so young. Think about it. I mean,
we didn't know we don't know who we are at that age.
Right,
I mean,
in your
none
20s,
of us really
what you
did.
like in your 20s, you don't like in your 30s. You're still developing.
So maybe derogatory is not the right word, but like did you look at him and say, this is somebody that's not saleable because of...
No, and the same thing happened with Macy Gray. When I brought Macy in, because I hadn't seen Macy Gray either, and I brought her into my boss. I was in LA, she was in Ohio. She came in, we both met in New York, and my boss, before I met her, goes, we're not signing her. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're joking, right? Because I was in love with her voice. And he goes, we're not signing her. Like, you haven't seen her? I'm like, no. And he goes, she is not a star. And I literally stood behind her. I took her to get clothes and revamped her image. Wow. And she became her music. And once her music developed, and then everybody loves her, and she's iconic.
Such
and
an icon, yes.
Yeah, Macy Gray, everybody
powerhouse.
knows who she is. But my boss was so mortified. He's like, there's no way we're signing this person.
Wow.
And so I stood behind that, but I stood behind Chester as well, because I knew his voice was iconic, and his voice gave me, goosebumps, and So, long story short, sweetest kid in the world. But he wasn't intimidating, and I think his voice had. I knew there was some demons in there, and I had to get to the bottom of it. But I knew that would come.
Did you ever?
Oh yeah.
Did we ever get to the bottom of that?
That's a deep dive. So. Long story short, introduced him to the band. It wasn't a good fit at the first moment. The guys really weren't. They
didn't like the way he looked. They didn't like his sound. But it was new. So in all fairness to them, anything new, you're kind of like, even when you just played, we just listened to some new music in there. Both of us were sharing as we normally do. And I loved some of it. Actually, that one guy I really, really loved. And then I was like, okay, let's hear some more. So that happens.
Either way,
process.
Samantha, actually, to her credit, and Chester both came to me and go like, hey, we can't be sleeping in our car this whole time. Where are they going to make a decision? Because it was like 6 weeks into this.
Wow.
And yeah,
we were struggling.
Out in LA.
I was trying to come back home too, and so I'm from LA and Chester's from Arizona, just to be clear.
Yeah, so I was just like, look, I go, you have my word. If he doesn't make it into XERO, I'll sign him and I'll do a development deal on my own, because I believed 100% in Chester and Samantha. And I literally was like, I love the fact that Chester had a support system behind him and pushing him and encouraging him, because it's so easy to give up. You're like, oh, I came out there, it wasn't really vibing, I'm going to go back home. And neither Chester nor Samantha gave up on that dream, and I made them a promise. I go, no, this will happen. Came in, spoke with the guys in XERO. We all agreed, and Chester became in the band.
Wow.
That was history in the making, right there.
Oh yeah, and then
but he's being very humble, because Jeff, you skipped over the whole part where Warner Brothers wanted you to be the head A&R rep, and you said, I will, under this condition. I want my band, Linkin Park.
Well, that came up much later. I was in the story.
Oh, sorry.
So
I get so excited.
So Chester gets in the band, and we decide to change the name, and the band came up with Hybrid Theory, because there was such a bad reputation of the band being not good, and I couldn't get anybody to see the band with Chester. Even when I sent out new music, people were like, don't want to see this band XERO. They didn't make a difference. So we changed the name to Hybrid Theory, or the band did, and sent out a whole new slew of songs. And everybody's like, this sounds like your band XERO. I'm like, nah, this is not XERO. It's a different band. They come out and see it. They go, oh, you're misleading or lying. This is XERO. And I'm like, no, the singer is a star. And still, every single person passed. And Warner Brothers came out 3 different times. Mm-hmm. And a guy, very, very talented guy, David Kahn, had passed on the band 3 times and goes, I just don't feel it. And so we were out on Warner Brothers. You can't bring somebody more down than 3 times without them beating you senseless. And, shocked it to everybody.
I want to know what all those people are feeling or thinking when they were the ones behind that said no to LP.
Well, you know what?
That would be great. I'm really curious, by the way. Sucks to be you. Just saying. Because I can say that.
My passion for the band
serious,
was only.
huh?
I am serious because it was a serious point in my life.
I know.
About
it is a serious point in my life too.
These memories and my boss, my attorney, my manager was like, just give up because it's not looking good. It's making you look bad.
But you believed in them so
totally
much.
believed in them, and especially Chester. Long story short, I had, Macy Gray blew up. And
at the same time, he was signing.
These other artists, and Korn and Limp Bizkit were blowing up. Everything was going great, and I started getting offers to do A&R because I was a music publisher at the time. And mind you, so music publishing is a lot different than A&R or a record label. So music publishing is ownership of copyrights, the songs and the songwriter's music, and going out and trying to get placements and admin administration of copyrights.
There's like both sides, right?
Well, the record companies make master copies, so they create the records with the artist, and the record label owns the master and then distributes it. So one side is the songs, which is the publishing and this is very abbreviated. Publishing focuses on the songs, while record companies focus on the actual product, the actual material.
Yeah.
And so I was getting offers to work for record labels, which was really my goal. And my whole vision was for me to develop artists like Macy Gray, like Linkin Park, and that would give me the ability to go in and work at a record label. So that started happening. I got offers from a whole bunch of labels, but everybody said, we don't want that band, Hybrid Theory. We don't like them. Other than a gentleman I met at the very, very tail end named Joe McEwen. As a total fluke, I was out in New York, went to a bar, CBGB's, and this guy and I struck a total.
I mean, you're not going to find any talent or anybody. You
well, the
want
band
to
we were watching, the band I was
with.
watching was pretty bad. But
It's
this,
CBGB's?
it was horrible. And this guy, he goes, "Hey, you're Jeff Blue," and I'm like, "Yeah." And we rapped, and he invited me to his office. I played him the demo, already knowing that Warner Brothers had passed on this 3 times, but he was the head of A&R on the East Coast. And he goes, I'm like, "You hate it, right?" And he goes, "I really, really like it." And I'm like, wow, the first person who actually ever said, "I really like this band." And I was like, oh, I like controlled the smile. I was like, God, please let this not be a dream. And he asked me into the next day, and we came down, and he actually offered me a job. And he goes, "I want to see this, this band, Hybrid Theory, live." And we showcased for him. He liked the band, despite a horror. And if you read in the book, it's the right side up. One step closer. It goes into the entire process. Like the showcase that we did for Warner Brothers wasn't good. It was fraught with disastrous sound problems, etc. But Joe McEwen, he understood the passion and the energy of the band and the talent, all despite the nightmare that was the showcase. And he loved Chester, he loved Mike, and he thought that there was some depth to the band that was different. And I was like,
they were really great at songwriting together.
Yeah, how
amazing.
How were
So
they in the okay? So
oh wow.
How long is this period that you're talking about?
This is a full 3 years before I was able to. Yeah, well, with Chester, it was about 7 months. It was quick.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, but the entire process for me signing the band was about 3 years. But the songwriting in the beginning wasn't great, and it wasn't until the very end where they started. Like they had a song called "Points of Authority," and they had a song called "Blue," which had moments in it, and
they finally had a little young blood, a little new blood in their band, right? And they had a changed sound. So it took a minute for this band who grew up together and they were all best friends working together.
Where were they from?
Calabasas, right?
Agura,
yeah. Okay, so they were local, like LA County.
And it was a different economic situation too, which I thought was
huge
these guys came from really kind of well-off families and whatnot, and had that. It was just a little bit different, and Chester was also married, and a little bit more party atmosphere, I guess, kind of.
So we were the wild ones. We were the
bad ones.
And that's why
Chester and I, and Samantha, and Mike's
and
wife,
Carmen, and his ex-wife, who he loves so much. By the way, if you're watching, Carmen, I love you. I miss you too. Sorry. But really, it took this. They were all best friends, and they had a new sound, and they had this new guy, and they had to figure all that out, right? And that was really different. So for us to be, we were the oldest.
A little bit
also
of
in
an
the band.
outsider element, and
Totally.
that was a
He's
big
from
concern.
Arizona.
Yeah.
He had a different look. He just cut off all his dreadlocks. He was very influenced
He had all the tats.
by all the tats. Yeah, we were the bad ones. We liked to drink. We liked to smoke weed, and we were just that couple that was loud and
so
proud.
we became very, very close. Me and Chester and Samantha, my ex-wife. But the songwriting evolved to the point right when we got the record deal. This is the crazy part.
But I also think trust started building somewhere along. You know, when you're band members, you have to start learning how to work together.
Do they start getting along?
Well, I don't know if that ever really happened.
Really?
So
I didn't know
yeah,
that. I don't know.
That's smoke and mirrors, babe.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I appreciate.
Not
that.
every band gets along. How many bands do we hear about that aren't really best friends?
Like most bands.
Most bands. But you know, Rob McDermott, hi, don't kill me, but he said something very interesting today. He goes, or not today, months ago, but he said, recently, he said, I'm sorry, part of this is my fault that the whole world thinks that they're all friends. And I think that they're friends to a certain extent, because how do you do business with people that you're not friends with? But at the same token, you have some friends and business partners closer than others, right? So I'm not trying to get sued over here and say all kinds of crazy shit online, but let's just face it, they weren't friends. He was somebody new coming in. It's a new business. You're trying to develop a friendship. You're trying to have an associate. You're trying to build. And we were so extra. We were the older ones. We were the partiers. This is a very straight-laced band.
In different socioeconomic tier.
Oh, we were poor.
You guys
And we didn't have any family supporting us. I mean, his dad, Pops, which everyone knows as Pops, helped us the most financially, as much as he possibly could, but we were struggling. I mean, we were moving from Arizona back to LA. Can you imagine living in another state trying to move to LA? So when Arizona, which is the economics, it's so much cheaper to live there, but maybe not now in today's world, but then it was Scottsdale and Paradise Valley and Phoenix were not as expensive as Los Angeles. So for me to leave Los Angeles and go there, meet Chester, get married, for us to come back to Los Angeles was very difficult financially. It was so much harder to come back than if I would have just stayed.
Was there any money being made at this point?
No,
there wasn't a lot. So like the deal with the publishing deal we did was like a $4,000 deal. It was the lowest.
We
deal
weren't even in on that deal.
They weren't in on that. It was, and again, it
was before
for a band to get any publishing deal.
Yeah.
Period is a very, very, very difficult thing. A band getting a deal on their first show they ever played never happens, ever. I don't think in the history of. I just believed in. I love this kid Brad. You know, he was.
He's one of my favorites.
He was really sweet, and I believed in, and that's part of it too. You have to believe in the people and the individuals, and I believed in Mike and the whole band had a talent. And as much as the talent, that was really what struck me.
Well, you have to focus on that. You were doing business. But
it was a small deal, but they got me to work. I made that my absolute priority. Nothing, you know, and I made the band that promise. I go, you will get a record deal. And I promised them that. They go, there's no way you can do that. And I go, yes, I will, because I am willing that to happen. And that's maybe why I got so excited. I mean, subconsciously with Chester, because I knew that was going to happen. But what ended up really messing everything up was it took me 9 months to get out of my contract at Zomba Music Publishing when I got hired at Warner Brothers, because I had offers to go all these different record labels, and every record label was like, we'll offer you double what Warner is, but we don't want to have this band attached to you. And I said, there's no way I am not leaving Hybrid Theory to take a job. And I was offered like $500,000, which is still to these days a lot of money for, my first real A&R job. And I decided to take half of that to go to Warner Brothers, because this guy Joe McEwen was like, I'll let you sign the band. And I'm like, done.
You believed in him that much?
That much.
Like,
so,
you thought this was the winning racehorse, this band?
Yes.
I believe, not only did I believe it was the winning racehorse, I just believed that it was family. And that meant everything to me. And I actually have, I actually put up the contract. So we actually found all the emails, all that. So we actually have the thing that says, this is a package deal through the band's attorney, Danny Hayes, and it was absolutely a requirement for my employment deal to sign the band. And the crazy thing is, when I got to the record label, finally, after 9 months, it was like 3 days up until I was supposed to go, start my new job. I get a phone call from this guy, Joe McEwen, who's the guy who hired me, and he goes, "So, have some interesting news. I'm no longer the head of A&R at Warner Brothers." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, this guy, David Kahn, is your new boss." And I'm like, "This is a joke. There's no possible way." David Kahn passed on this band 3 times. He's like, "Yeah." So that's not good.
I totally relate, like just in the film industry, like when things change at Netflix or something, you have this great relationship with this one person, and then that position changes, and the whole dynamic just flips.
Welcome to Hollywood.
Yeah,
it was
anyway,
like, this is like literally like a movie
Sorry,
script.
guys.
It resonated, right?
This is literally like a movie script. So I go to lunch with my new boss, and he goes, "Do you think this band really is ready to be signed to make a record?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And at this time, they had Crawling, they had Points of Authority, they had pieces of songs, and I'm like, "I think there's absolute hits here."
Amazing.
And he's like, "Nah, I
Just
don't really
saying.
feel it." But he goes, "I'll give you a shot with it." And from that moment on, I was like, I literally went to the head of marketing. It wasn't even my first day, and I go, "We got to get this project moving because this band's going to get dropped before we even have." This guy was on a mission to drop the band and make a point. And so I rushed into the studio.
Sucks, man.
Oh, it was brutal.
Jeez.
I rushed these guys. Literally, my
See it
first
happen all
day
the time.
in the office
Sucks.
was the first studio day. So I had set up studio time at NRG. I was like, we're fast tracking this. The band didn't even have all their songs ready, and I'd incorporated like the Dust Brothers. Mike Simpson was a really good family friend of mine, so I got him.
Brothers.
Dust Brothers. It was Dust Brothers.
I thought it was Chemical Brothers.
But close. But
I'm probably wrong.
so long story short, we go into the studio, my first day in the office, and we get the ball moving on the project, and they had I think we had 15 songs, and we whittled them down, and there was a song called Picture Board in there that everybody freaks out over, but I didn't like. And we started cutting songs out, and it was just hard hitting. I'm like, I want to make this album an absolute clear. I don't want it muddy. And we had a great producer, actually decided on a guy named Don Gilmore, because no other producers wanted to produce this band. People were like, not into it.
Don Gilmore did an amazing job.
The great thing was great
bravo.
communication with Don, and I want to have a clear record. I don't want all this muddy stuff. I go, this band's sound is so amazing. There's so much color and vibrancy in it that I want a producer that can actually has pop sensibilities. And Don was great with that, and it was,
he enhanced them. He didn't change who they were. He enhanced them. He saw who they were and brought them to the world. He like helped let them breathe like a fine wine.
Absolutely. And part of that is being able to cut out the fat. And I my whole thing is pop songs, and because at the end of the day, all music is pop music. It's popular music, and if you're gonna have hits, you want them to hit and leave the listener wanting more.
Don, can we go out to dinner with him? I'd like to go out to dinner with him. I haven't seen you. What?
Go Cannon.
Okay, well that's close to home.
Look who's here. Watch for your drink.
Uh-oh.
This is my son, Cannon Blue. Oops,
Man
there's that
down.
vodka soda. So
The water.
It was water. I swear.
So, anyways, we
Not
go in to
that
make this
cool.
record, and my boss comes down about
Get my ass
3-4 weeks into it, and didn't like it. So
This is Hybrid Theory, the album.
this is Hybrid Through the album. My boss
Before
comes
it
down.
was, but was it named that?
No, so at this time we didn't have a name for the album. The band's was named Hybrid Theory.
Okay.
This is before we had another disaster, which the record label made us change the name.
Okay.
Well, because that European band was
Yeah.
named Hybrid Theory.
So this guy comes down and he's like, doesn't even listen to the 4 songs we pulled up on the monitors for him, and takes me outside. He's like, well, I'll tell you what. He goes, that singer's really good, but he goes, we got to do something about the rapper. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, that rapper's got to go. And I was just like, God, it's just one roadblock after another, and people just, it's like, you know, people throwing, like, you're on this racetrack and you're trying to get up the hill and like people are throwing logs and you're like trying to, it's like Donkey Kong, if you remember that, it was like trying to jump over these roadblocks, but you keep getting pushed back.
And Chester was really loyal. I mean, he was so loyal to a band he had just met. He said, there's no way you can sign me without Mike. This is his baby.
Well, that what he did, it wasn't even there yet. It was like, it was just so early, and it was really unfair. And he's like, no, he goes. It
was a bad position for a front man to be in with a dual front man.
Oh, and for me to be in, for an A&R guy to
anybody.
So I had
even for the wives, because then, you know, we all have to be friends with each other, and that doesn't work so well when there's egos and flare-ups and somebody wants to sign one person and not the other, and that kind of happened.
Well, we already had the entire project, and it really disrupted the creativity. And when you're creating something, you always have to have that unified vision. You can't just really disrupt it. So it was a lot of distraction, a lot of drama, a lot of stress, unnecessary stress. And Chester and I sat back, and you know, we were at my house. We had a dinner, and decided that, you know, we will massage it again, mislead my boss into believing that we were going to reduce the amount of rapping that there was, because at this point my boss was like, we don't need a rapper. He was trying to suggest a guy named why does my brain just freeze? Mad Lion. And that was his name. Yeah, and come to find out when I was writing the book that Mad Lion was one of his artists. Which is crazy, and it was very, very stressful.
And motives happening right there.
And yeah, just super dramatic. And you know, the band obviously freaked out. I freaked out. I didn't want the band to get dropped. And Chester and I came to an agreement that we would say that we're going to tame it down, but we really just make the record and not disrupt it. But the entire process got disrupted. The trust, you know, the energy, the synergy. So long story short, it was a very difficult record to make. But I think actually the benefit was that it pushed everybody to work that much harder.
And together.
It unified the band.
It really did.
Where were you?
We were almost homeless, living in cars and living at family members' house.
And the rest of the band members
they're all living at home.
Okay.
Or some had roommates.
Rob had his own place, yeah.
And Mike had Corey as a roommate, which we love. Corey Sendilius, a great artist.
Mm-hmm. And then your
I have your portfolio still.
Like, you were doing all right? It was like the beginning.
I was being told that because of the band Hybrid Theory, my job was on the line, that I was going to get fired.
But were all your eggs in one basket?
Yeah, 100%. All my eggs were on. All my eggs.
All his huevos, eggs. Huevos,
they were all based on this, and I'm like, I stuck my career on this band, and they're about to be dropped.
Wow.
And so
I can't even imagine the stress.
And the only person fighting for these 6 band members, 6 guys, right? One human who a lot of people don't give credit to, and that shit pisses me off because I'm a down-ass punk rock girl. I never forget where I come from. Chester was always the type of human, he never forgot where he came from. So that really upsets me to this day. That's something, this is why Jeff and I, we became all best friends then, and we stayed that close. Now, through time, things change and things happen, but the love and the friendship just doesn't go away. I don't care who thinks they know what. I know the truth. And I know that sometimes when you're doing business with certain people, you tell them what you want them to hear, or you think they want to hear, to shut them fucking up. Yep. So you can be productive and finish business.
Yep.
And sometimes you have to massage shit. So if Chester would have to say, oh yeah, I'm not talking to him, or I'm not doing business with this person, I'm not doing, that would be massaging. That would be a good explanation. Like yes, a little just, you gotta like work things in to continue doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah.
And I love it how everybody thinks they know better than our immediate family, even business partners. I'm sorry, you're not in our houses.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I went through a lot of really mental torture during that time, trying to balance the needs of the band, keeping a band happy, keeping my boss happy, keeping the band on a record label, and
keeping
then
your
keeping
wife
my
happy,
my wife
keeping
was
your lead singer's wife happy. Yeah, that's.
It was all resting on my shoulders, and
That's
I love these guys. Like, it was family, and and you got to imagine.
You really
I made my
fell in
first
love with
job.
Brad first. Let's just keep it real, because your
Made it
true
love, right?
love was with Brad, as you saw him as a human.
He's like a mini me. Like, he wanted to go to law school, but everybody in that band was driven,
Brad.
man. And but regardless, at this point, this was I was trying to figure out how to deal with it, and I made mistakes in delivery. I should have brought the. Instead of like freaking out over my boss, telling me something like, go do this now because we're going to pull the band, we're going to pull the studio. I went and dealt with it on my own rather than, spreading out the communication and letting it come from different sources. And so that led to a lot of disruption. But long story short, I think the pressure on Mike, because at the end of the day, it was all about the rapping, made him a much stronger rapper. And me and
he's
Rob,
such a great songwriter. He really is a talented songwriter.
Oh, absolutely.
Producer.
Mike Shinoda,
Okay.
amazing.
I'm not a fan. I mean, let's just be honest. I'm just not a fan. I'm more a punk rock girl, so I'm never going to gravitate to the hip hop stuff, and unless you're like Andre 3000 or something so amazing. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be that amazing, or an Eminem.
Well, how did
for me to love.
Chester feel about kind of blending hip hop with what he was doing?
He's so
Was
amazing
he just
as a
open
human.
to whatever?
Well, any kind of collaboration as an artist was the way he wanted to jump in.
Okay.
With any artist. Like, he was always open-minded to that. I'm sure he was very strong in his opinions on certain things. Like, a lot of the times he would write his own lyrics and Mike would write his own lyrics. And tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
They collaborated.
The end result was a lot of people going, hey, this works. This doesn't. At the end of the day, I wasn't so deep. I was just like, this has got to be this way and that way.
It's got to work. None of us were ready to go home. We were never going to throw in the towel
I said,
at this
look,
point.
I go, the only time this is going to be ready, because it got really tense in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you know what? When this album's done, when we all agree. Not anytime sooner. I don't care. I don't want 1 second on this album that I don't 100% feel in love with and 100% confident with.
How long does it typically take to cut a record? Does that vary?
No, it completely varies. I mean, it could take forever. I mean, it could take months.
How long?
This took about 6 weeks, 7 weeks.
Okay.
Sometimes they take years. I mean,
Yeah, and we were under the gun.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of bands come in with all the songs done.
Okay.
Some of these songs were done. We massaged them. We changed them. Wrote, the band wrote in the studio. Long story short, it wasn't going great, and I kept giving them notes. And one day, they go, we're at an impasse because we don't think we're doing what you want.
Chester almost quit. I'm sure you remember those phone calls, and a lot of people don't know that, and I know we left that out of our books because it wasn't part of our ultimate story. But when we're sharing right now, like, he almost quit a few times because there were so many roadblocks. There was so much butting heads, so many different personalities, and he was like the new kid on the block. So did we really fit in, or was he really accepted?
He was having issues about him fitting in at the time too. It was very, very difficult. And finally, the band called me and they're like, come down because we don't know what to do. And I literally went in the studio in the back room and listened to it once the whole time through, and I was like, I had no comments for once. And
wow.
I mean, I am the guy with constantly EQ up here, blah 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 blah. Change this.
Literally speechless.
Yeah, I can't stand this lyric, blah blah blah. Yeah, and I listened to it one more time. The second time, I'm like, holy crap. I go, this is done.
Is that gratifying?
Well, I walked into the studio and they're like, I'm just like holding back. Some of them are like, you hate it. Oh, I knew he hates it. I'm like, and a tear came down my eyes. I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever heard. I'm like, I started tearing in my eyes. And they're like, you're kidding. I go, no, this is freaking perfect. I go, other than, I still had a little problem with In the End, which they tweaked. But I was just
total
in tears.
number one hit, right?
In tears. Yeah, In the End was the big song that I constantly pushed on because I knew that could have been a hit, and that
all I know is One Step Closer was the least favorite song.
And that was
for
my
everyone.
I knew that was going to be our first single. That was a
And
whole
he
nother
was
fight
right.
too.
Totally
I knew one
right.
step closer, and I knew they needed that type of song. I knew the album had to be balanced with, you know, enough balance between Mike and Chester, communicating the rock edge, communicating the pop edge, communicating clarity and emotion, and the lyrics had to cut through, and the band came through like crazy, and I was just like, this is it. We are done. There's no more. We're not messing with this. You know, nobody. We're good. And then we went to go mix.
Can we pause?
Can we pause?
Yeah.
Stop.
Yep.